The following is distributed by the Berean Call.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Kurth, and I'm here to introduce Carl Teichrib this afternoon. Carl and I have been friends for about 21 years now. I met him at the Winnipeg Prophecy Conference. He was one of the speakers there. And the lady who ran the conference, I always told her that she needed to give Carl more opportunity. She only gave him 1 hour to talk at the conference. He was too good a speaker and he should have had more time. She never did ever give him more time, but now we see Carl with his new book out, Game of Gods, which is a book each of you should get and read. He's doing an excellent job and is now on high demand as a speaker. Carl is an excellent on-the-ground investigator. When he investigates something, he goes out and he finds out exactly what is going on, and he does the great, and as far as documentation of it, his footnotes are extensive. But I'll give you an example of the uncanny ability he has to deal with people. He had the opportunity to speak to Mormons and tell them what was wrong with their religion and why they should become Christians, accepting Jesus Christ under the shed blood of his blood saving them rather than the Mormon doctrine. When he got done telling them how wrong they were still friends of his and still invited him back. He was able to do the same thing with the witches' coven. That is an ability that I don't have. So get ready to hear a great speaker, and I'm sure you'll enjoy Carl. Thank you very much. Carl?
Hi, I'm Carl Teichrib, the author of the book Game of Gods, The Temple of Man in the Age of Re-enchantment. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for participating in this presentation, for watching it, for tuning in to the Berean Call virtual conference. It's my hope and my prayer that this event will have challenged you, will have encouraged you, and will have equipped you to being ambassadors for Christ in our changing time. This presentation will look at the question of engaging as ambassadors, engaging in Christian outreach, being truth tellers in what is now increasingly a pagan world. How do we do this? Are there models for us to look at, even biblically? I don't have a gifting in evangelism, so I kind of feel a little strange giving a talk like this. My gifting is in research. My gifting is in writing. I feel comfortable in those realms. But the idea of doing evangelism and Christian outreach, that's tougher. This is a challenge now for me, this presentation, if I'm honest about it, as much as it may be a challenge for you. In giving this talk, I am hoping we see a couple things happen. I'm hoping, number one, that we are spurred on to be truth tellers, to engage in outreach when those doors open up, and to recognize how those doors are opening up. And then, while we will be giving a couple of examples from my research on the ground where I have had those opportunities, I'm also hoping that you'll be better equipped to understand the times we're in as we hit on a couple of pretty significant movements in our culture today: Interfaithism, transhumanism, and evolutionary culture, specifically through the Burning Man experience. So those are going to be kind of where we're going to end up. And that's part of the research I do in terms of my boots on the ground. Those are events I go to. Those are places that I go to do research, to try to understand, to analyze, document the world as it is changing, literally before our eyes. So let's jump into this. There are three primary models of doing outreach in the New Testament. Three primary models of truth-telling. The first model is an appeal to scriptural authority. It's exhorting, it's teaching. The example of Jesus talking to the religious rulers is probably the best example. When he's talking to the religious rulers or his disciples, he is reminding them, have you not read? And there's that appeal back into Scripture. This is the model we use when we are dealing with people who claim to have some religious and preferably a biblical, or at least they claim to have some biblical reference point. And that includes even the pseudo-Christian cults like Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses, because they will claim that the Bible has a position of importance in their religion. So this is where we go with that group of people. We use the appeal to Scripture. Model number 2 is recognizing the personal. This is the idea of giving truth with grace. The example here is Jesus Christ when he goes to the sinners. He is ministering to those who are shunned, to those who have been mistrusted. He's dining with them. He's spending time with them. The woman at the well is a prime example. He came to her in her place, and he engages with her at a very personal level. And then he brings up who he is and displays his truth to her. In Matthew 9, we read, "I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners." So that's the model. That's another model that we use, the appeal or the recognition of the personal. Now, how do we do outreach in a pagan age where the worldview has more connections back to the idea of oneness, where man, God, and nature are all considered the same, versus the belief of, from the Judeo-Christian context? How do we now engage in that type of truth-telling? Well, model number 3 is Paul's model when he goes to Athens and when he engages with people in the pagan cultures. And that is first the acknowledgement of God as creator. And he goes literally as an ambassador of this God who is distinct. He goes as an ambassador of Jesus Christ. He goes to tell them the good news. And again, the probably the best example is Acts 17, though there are other examples like Paul and Barnabas in Lystra. So what does it mean to be an ambassador for Christ? 2 Corinthians 5 says this, "Now then, we are ambassadors for Christ, as though God were pleading through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God. For he made him who knew no sin to be sin for us, that we might become the righteousness of God in him." Do you notice that this isn't a metaphor? It's not like Paul's other descriptive language talking about running the Christian race or being a soldier for Christ or using the idea or the metaphor of being a farm laborer. No, Paul is saying you are an ambassador. He isn't giving a metaphor. He is telling us who we are. It is our duty. It is what you and I actually are as followers of Jesus Christ here on this earth. A number of years ago, I had the opportunity of listening to the U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia before he took his posting. He gave a presentation in Chicago. I was there for that event. And as he broke down what it meant to be an ambassador, I walked away going, wow, this is impressive. This is important. This is what we are. If we are ambassadors, what does this mean to be one? And he explained it. He broke it down, and I walked away going, okay, this is a very important thing for us as Christians to recognize. So what is an ambassador? Again, this is who you are. You are the official and legal representative of your government. Literally, in terms of Christianese, using the Christianese language, you are the royal and official legal representative of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords to a foreign land. That is who you are. I can't think of a calling higher and more meaningful than that. What else does an ambassador do? Well, the ambassador has to know his king's power and position. An ambassador represents his king's interests and not your own interests. An ambassador takes the time to understand the culture and the customs of a foreign land, that position that he is now holding as that representative. It does require some study. It does require some homework. And that was something that the U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia was emphasizing, how much time he was spending working through their history, their philosophy, their understanding the cultural nuances. Not that he becomes that, not that we become what the culture is around us. No, we're set apart from it. But we can't be uninformed as to its character or composition because we're representatives in that land. And so we have to understand the customs and the culture, at least enough to know how to engage as an ambassador in the space we find ourselves. And in all this, we do two things. First, we are there to effectively communicate the king's message. That's our primary goal. And then second, to recognize challenges to the king's interest. And then you alert all of those in his service, all the rest of our diplomatic community, all the rest of us who are brothers and sisters in Christ, to where those concerns are coming, so that they can gird themselves up and be equipped and see where the dangers are, and then to be able to respond biblically. So this is the role and duty of being a royal ambassador. It is literally your calling. As I said earlier, Paul's example in Acts 17 is a fantastic model for what it looks like to be an ambassador in a pagan age. We won't read all of this. In fact, I'm going to encourage you to go into Acts 17 later on. And if you have the opportunity to watch this again, pause on this slide and then go through Acts 17, looking at each one of these points. So we know the story. We know the events. I'll just give it to you in a brief rundown. Paul goes to Athens, and while he's there, he recognizes their spiritual situation. He takes his time to engage with the Jewish and the Gentile believers in the city. He's gone around, he's surveyed the community. He understands its spiritual setting. And then he encounters the philosophers, the trendsetters of the day. He is taken to the Council of Areopagus. Now, the background to this is important. Standing behind Paul, or maybe even before Paul, because the Areopagus was a shoulder of a hill, and on this hill are a multitude of pagan temples, huge temples. In the far background is the temple of Zeus. There's a temple of Nike. Paul's foreground, Paul's image or visions around him, what he is seeing literally are temples made by human hands to pagan deities. The paganism of that era was raw and real, and that is what Paul finds himself in the midst of. And so while he's there being questioned by the Council of Areopagus, he acknowledges their spiritual setting. He uses their spiritual culture to launch into the gospel, referencing the fact that he saw a monument to the unknown God. And then he presents the character of the true God, the Creator, Lord of heaven and earth, the one who gives life and breath. He speaks about repentance, judgment, and resurrection. In verse 28, he understands their worldview. He even quotes their own philosophers. He quotes the hymn of Zeus to them. And then in verse 32, what is the response? Well, some mocked, which is exactly what people will do to you, right? Some mocked, but some wanted to hear more. Ultimately, it's the Holy Spirit that does the change of the heart. Paul was the messenger. Paul was the truth teller. He was the ambassador. So, recognizing now that we live in a pagan or an enchanted world, we need to consider that model that Paul gives us in Acts 17. How can we engage? How can we leverage the culture around us? It's important to recognize, and I brought this out in the first discussion, that we live in an era of oneness. The pagan view, or the re-enchanted view, that God, man, and nature are all essentially the same, whereas the biblical worldview is otherness, that God is distinct, that he is unique. My first taste of oneness took place back in 1997. It was my first real research trip. I traveled to Vancouver, British Columbia, to attend the Global Citizenship 2000 Youth Congress. And Robert Mueller, the retired official from the United Nations, was there. Now keep in mind the audience. The audience is made up of school children, educators, even university students, going all the way from K up to grade 12, and then those who are engaged in community activities, community activism. It was really a conference of schools from the Lower Mainland region of BC and Vancouver, as they were wrestling with what does this look like to be a global citizen. We all received earth passports, symbolic earth passports. And the wording in the passport read this: "You are the earth, becoming conscious of herself. Unite, global citizens, to save and heal planet Earth." I hope at this point, right here, that causes you to pause, especially the line, "to save and heal planet Earth." Indeed, it is your task as an ambassador of oneness, right? As a good global citizen. You are an ambassador of the one who is other. You recognize that it is Christ who saves the world. It's not through your endeavors. It's certainly not through your collective actions. And so we were taught oneness for the course of this weekend. This is what Robert Mueller told the children. "You are not children of Canada. You are really living units of the cosmos because the Earth is a cosmic phenomena. We are all cosmic units. This is why religions tell you, you are divine. We are divine energy. It is in your hands whether evolution on this planet continues or not." And then over the course of the weekend, the different schools would break out into working groups to come up with ideas of what it means to be a good global citizen. Each school came up with different action plans, different campaigns, slogans, all kinds of things were happening. There was a lot of excitement in the air as all these school children were buzzing with what we could do. And Robert Mueller reminded everybody that you can have a fantastic future. You just need to come up with an idea. And Robert Mueller told everybody about how involved he was at the United Nations and that he had helped to bring about the development of all kinds of UN programs. And so these schools brainstormed. And some of the ideas were this: to start school-based interfaith groups and school-based global citizenship clubs, to foster Earth pride and form celebrations around a planetary identity. One school suggested we needed to zero world debt, replace money with biometric cards and Earth points. Others described the idea of instilling global spiritual and ethical values through public education. The group that I was sitting with, which were university students, recognized that what we were talking about was really a religious, philosophical idea. And so one of the students around my circle said this: what we need to do is take the global citizenship concept, make it a virus, no inoculation, infect everyone. And at the end of the event, there was a celebration in the concourse of the building, and we had a theatrical troupe that came and presented to us Ganesha, the Hindu deity, the god of beginnings, the remover of obstacles. And the school children were told, "I have been around for thousands and thousands of years, and you can call on me any time to remove your thoughts of any obstacles. If you should ever worry or anguish, or if life gets you down, whisper an Om. Call on loving Ganesha, who always is there, for Ganesha is none other than you." What I had witnessed was an expression of the original deception. Genesis 3 reads this way: "Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, Has God indeed said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, We may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God has said, You shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Then the serpent said to the woman, You shall not surely die, for God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Notice the tactics of deception and the underlying message that accompanies it. First, the focus on doubt. Did God really say? Did God really command that? And then the alternative. You're not going to die. There's another way forward. Notice also the three interlocking points in verse 5. Enlightenment. Your eyes will be opened. A new vision will unfold. Deification or divine likeness. You will be like or as God. You will take upon yourself His identity. And then thirdly, you will gain wisdom through special knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil. Two underlying messages also exist. In disobeying God, we assert our divine selves. That God can be challenged shows us that another path is possible. And then, by transgressing, we transform. This is really important. By transgressing, we transform. Humanity ascends by breaking God's laws. Revolution promises evolution. In my last talk, I gave us examples of re-enchantment. We talked about what re-enchantment looks like, what it means. I want to remind you of some of this because in the examples that I will be showing, they all are steeped in re-enchantment. Re-enchantment is the development of a new mythos, a new framing story, a new truth claim wrapped up in a grand vision. It's our planetary interconnection, our oneness, our wholeness. It's a soul-like sense of contact with natural processes, a spiritual connection back to the earth, that pagan veneration of nature. It's a return to Gaia, our sacred earth. In re-enchantment, the self finds value in the global community. We, all of us, collectively, are directing our evolution. There's no God outside of nature. Rather, it's the community of feelings that guides our ethics and our values. Reality is validated by our experiences. Creation is divine. Salvation is discovered in ourselves. So, in the next few minutes, I want to give you snapshots of re-enchantment. And in the three examples I'll be giving, I also want to show how doors were opened to present the gospel, how doors were opened to do Christian outreach, and how that kind of came about. So we want to take a look at the Parliament of World Religions, at Interfaithism. That is our first example. The first Parliament of World Religions took place in 1893 in Chicago, at the Chicago World's Fair. This is one of the statements from that event. The religion of the future will be universal in every sense. It will embody all the thoughts and aspirations and virtues and emotions of all humanity. It will draw together all lands and peoples and kindreds and tongues into a universal brotherhood of love and service. It will establish upon earth a heavenly order. In 2015, I attended the Parliament of the World's Religions in Salt Lake City. It was a spectacle. In the picture you see here, we have shamans coming in, leading a procession, opening up the Parliament, asking for the guidance of Mother Earth, asking that there would be a blessing on the activities that take place. The main picture that you see on the screen is just a small snapshot of the people as they're assembling. It's a big event. Throughout the Parliament, we had different places that you could go for workshops. We had lectures. There was all kinds of cultural events happening. I mean, with a group of 10,000 people, it's a busy place. One of the things that struck me, and you couldn't miss it, was this repetitious reminder that we are serving Mother Earth. You see a picture here. One of them is in the hallway. We had a hall all dedicated to the goddess. I counted 85, but I believe there was more. I must have miscounted. 85 different murals representing the goddess in her various stages. We had the Red Tent Temple. And the Red Tent Temple was the womb of the Parliament. And it was a gathering space for women. And so over the course of that week, you could go to do yoga, you could go to hear workshops in the Red Tent Temple. There were ceremonies, there were rituals, as people came to assert and recognize Mother Earth. Here are a few statements from the Parliament. From Chief Paulette, "What is sin? The greatest and the biggest sin that man can make is to abuse Mother Earth." Marianne Williamson said this, "The divine goddess is not just beautiful, she's fierce. And when you mess with her babies and you mess with her earth, she's had enough. And we're here on her behalf. You know what to do. Go do it. Now, that was during the women's plenary session. I was there. Let me tell you, the emotion of that was raw. Thousands of women on their feet, cheering Marianne. People were sobbing. People were crying. Fists were pumping in the air. There were drummers in the background, pounding on drums. Somebody rose up the cheer, Marianne for president. It was a really emotionally charged gathering, that is for certain. Philip Goldberg said this in one of his workshops. I am you, you are me. It is that level of unification and oneness that we wanted to address this morning because we thought it is the most fundamental level of unity, the most fundamental level of oneness. And it's not to be found just in reasoning or in dialogue. It's to be found in the direct experience of that reality within ourselves. To see the divinity in other people, that is a wonderful thing. Christianity was represented. We had representatives from the Vatican. There were Baptist representatives. There were representatives from a multitude of different proclaiming Christian faiths. Brian McLaren gave a keynote address. He was there to talk about his faith and the need for a new framing story. So he told us this, the old stories, that God gave the earth to humans so they could use it however they wanted for profit. Those stories said that God would soon destroy the earth, which gave powerful people a license to plunder it, as if it were a store going out of business. Then he went on to say, brothers and sisters, the earth is singing to us. The earth is crying to us. The earth is groaning to us. And he talked about how this new story needed to be rooted in the diverse richness of our various traditions for common and joint healing, for joint action, heal the world and protect all living things. Really? Really? What Brian was talking about, what he was asserting, was oneness. These are oneness statements. This is a oneness paradigm. The old story, the old Christian story, we're done. The old Genesis story, we're done. It's finished. Time to find a new framing story. In 2018, I attended the Parliament in Toronto. There, the theme was the promise of inclusion, the power of love. Stick that in your back pocket for 2 minutes. One of the statements that arose was, may the promise of the oneness of humanity guide this Parliament. And it was a big deal. About 7,500 people attended again. Faith leaders from around the world, a lot of politicians, a lot of people who are involved at the United Nations, people engaged in all kinds of levels of political activity, lobbying. We had representatives from the Canadian federal government who were in attendance. Again, a lot of social activists, faith and religious and spiritual teachers from a multitude of different religions. This is a carnival, literally a carnival of religions coming together. This is the heartbeat of the interfaith movement. Jim Wallace from Sojourners, progressive Christian, talked to us about, and this is, let me just quickly give you some context. This was during the U.S. midterm elections, okay? And so the place was abuzz about what was happening with President Trump, what was happening with the U.S. election system. Jim Wallace talked about how during the midterm elections, this was a battle between angels and demons. And those who support Trump, well, they're demons. Throughout the event, we were told repeatedly by many, many different speakers that there's no room for exclusive religious truth claims. It's time to end separating faiths. The uniqueness of Jesus Christ, that's divisive. Nationalism, we were also told, is a great threat, an evil scourge. The free market capitalist system, we were told repeatedly, free enterprise is immoral. Religious supremacy and national supremacy, that was the language. You are, if you hold to those positions of a religious truth claim and nationalism or a patriotism to your nation, you are a supremacist. In this slide, what you see is in the hallway. We have a Baptist minister, and she was expressing her anger to Justice Kavanaugh. And what she is doing is she's using the Buddhist San Mandela art technique, taking little bowls of colored sand and then very gently pushing the sand into a picture, making a picture out of the sand. And in the picture is the Hindu deity Kali, the deity of destruction and death. And Kali is holding the severed head of Justice Kavanaugh. And those other severed heads around Kali's waistband, those are the people who confirmed Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh. At the end of it, I was there for the wrap-up of her art piece. At the end of it, there was a 30 or so religious leaders from different faiths, and they all did a song and a dance and an invocation to Kali, calling upon Kali, 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 asking Kali to mete out justice. Then they destroyed the art piece in a symbolic act of healing and cleansing and of justice against those people like Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh. Remember the title of the conference or of the parliament, The Power of Love? And here's the book from the parliament, The Promise of Inclusion, The Power of Love. Oh, you could feel the love. Repeatedly, we were told that what we were engaging in was a type of salvation action. And a number of points emerged. The interfaith agenda aligns with the vision of the United Nations. We were told repeatedly that we are global citizens. Our loyalty is to Mother Earth. The Parliament brings legitimacy to new religious movements and to religious pluralism, religious universalism. In all of this, we were told constantly about our connectedness and how oneness must be embraced, that we are engaging in is collective unity. A few different statements arose from the Parliament. One of them was a cardinal who said that pursuing interdependence, one world with a common plan, that's what we're doing. Swami Agnavish said this to the Parliament. We, the peoples of the world, need to unite and demand a world government and a world parliament based on an earth constitution. At the end of the event, Larry Greenfield, the executive director of the Parliament, thanked all of us for our work to save the world. He repeatedly used the word salvation, that what we were doing was an act of salvation. And he said to us, thanks to all of those who are committed to the salvation of the earth. You see, you need to understand that by saving the earth in re-enchantment, we save ourselves. In this slide, what I'm showing you, there's a picture of myself, Don Vinot, and a few others. There are teams, small teams that do go to the Parliament to do outreach. There's a picture, the one picture, Bill Hansberger wearing a cap, talking to a Buddhist, to a Buddhist representative. In the bottom corner, Don Vinot and my friends Brian and Audrey, who are also part of our team, liaisoning before the event begins. And so at the 2015 Parliament and at the 2018 Parliament, we had groups who were going, small groups, who were there to present Jesus Christ, to talk, to engage in conversations, to look for conversations. Because, hey, every 10 feet you step, you interact with somebody from a different religion, and they're there to tell you all about it. They're excited to tell you all about it. And so this becomes a place for Christian outreach. Guerrilla evangelism, so to speak. We walk into their territory. We walk into their place, not being disrespectful, not being loud or arrogant, but we want to bring truth with grace. And we want to begin to have those conversations. And we've had some very good conversations. This is a place where we can bring the gospel of Jesus Christ, even though the gospel of Jesus Christ is not welcomed in this setting. Quickly, we want to jump now into another area of re-enchantment, and that is transhumanism. For those who have read my book, you will know what transhumanism is about. let me share with you a few key points. First of all, transhumanism is premised on the belief that evolution is true, that because man is a conscious being, we can shape, we can direct our human evolution. And we do this through science. We do this through our technical advancements. In all this, man plays God, man becomes God. Now, transhumanism, which is an intellectual movement, looks to the state of technology and the future of technological developments, and through technology sees that mankind can reshape himself. So transhumanism looks to brain-computer interfacing, virtual reality, augmented reality, advanced robotics, nanotechnology, genetic changes, all this to upgrade our bodies, to enhance our cognitive abilities, possibly to redesign babies in the womb, to eradicate disease, to eradicate ailments, greatly expand lifetimes, and even, if possible, to destroy death. Just to show you the re-enchanting side of transhumanism, a workshop from the Esalen Institute in 1993, from their workshop entitled Machine Dreams and Techno-shamanism. Is information immortal? What unexplored realms of spirit will we encounter with amazing new forms of computer and electronic hypermedia? New myths will be needed. New mysteries will be encountered. How can ancient models of mind, such as shamanism, Hinduism, or voodoo, help us comprehend silicon-based consciousness? Why are neuroenhancers crucial tools for so many computer innovators? Can humans share an erotic relationship with a machine being? Are Earth spirits at play in fields of photons and electronic spin? A neo-psychedelic subculture is co-evolving with new technologies to reveal glimpses of exotic futures. In 1996, another workshop held at Esalen. This was in the Esalen catalog for that year. It was entitled Techno-shamanism, Total Immersion in Spiritual Technology. To wholeheartedly embrace technology may be the only way to partake in the next phase of human evolution. Participants will experience brain machines, the internet, computer fractals, virtual reality, tarot, astrology, I Ching, through computer programs, chaos math, hemispheric alignment audio, video games, and even new media. The workshop will explore the techno-vision quest and evaluate it as an adjunct to more traditional spiritual practices. The weekend will conclude with a techno-pagan rave dance. Participants are encouraged to bring at least one item of technology. We kind of laugh at that because now we're all carrying around items of technology, aren't we? We're all connected into the web, aren't we? I mean, that's what we're even running this conference through, is the internet. And so transhumanism has had this forward approach to say technology is what will save us. And in fact, technology has a spiritual application, or spiritual implications to it. I saw that at the 2045 Congress. The Global Futures Congress took place in New York City in 2013. And in this picture, you see a couple of snapshots from some of their promotional material. Notice the top one, human evolution. Who do you want deciding our next step? And we saw interesting technologies. In the picture there, we were given demonstrations of advanced robotic arms, prostheses that were really very advanced. In the other picture, we have a robotics inventor, Dr. Ishiguro, and his Geminoid double, a robotic double of himself. At the end of the event, we had an interfaith workshop where we had faith leaders from 4 or 5 different religions who came together to discuss, what does this mean for us? What does it mean as we consider technology, evolution, and spirituality? Here are a couple of statements. We will form a race of God-men and develop a godlike civilization. That's what they were saying. One of the speakers said this: you are the light. You are the truth. You are the beginning. You are the end. You've just engaged in divine identity theft. Not only that, you're a plagiarizer. Those aren't your words. You've took the words of Jesus Christ out of the Gospels and you've mashed them together in your own way to assert your own claim of divinity. You are a divine identity thief. That same year, I had the opportunity of going to the Mormon Transhumanist Association's annual meeting in Salt Lake City. I had been invited to attend as a religious critic of religious transhumanism. The president at the time of the Mormon Transhumanist Association opened up the conference by saying this: "The Mormon Transhumanist Association stands for the proposition that we should learn to become gods, and not just any kind of God." Back up. The Mormon Transhumanist Association stands for the proposition that we should learn to become gods, and not just any kind of God, not the God that would raise itself above others, but rather the God that would raise each other together. We should learn to become Christs, saviors for each other, consolers and healers, as exemplified and invited by Jesus. As I said, I had been brought on, been given an invitation to speak as a critic of religious transhumanism. If you have the opportunity, look up my speech on the internet. You'll find it on YouTube as I address the Mormon Transhumanist Association in the space of about 15 or 16 minutes. That's all the time I had. And that was for everybody. Everybody had very short time periods to give their statements and to make their arguments. The bottom line was this, and this is what I shared with the transhumanists. The core difference is Jesus is the one who saves. He alone saves. And I went back to Luke 23, where we see Jesus hanging on the cross and two thieves on each side. One thief is calling down Christ, and the other thief is saying, "Don't you have any fear of God? This man," referring to Jesus, "is an innocent man." And then there was a conversation back and forth. But in that conversation, what did Jesus, and this really struck me as I was working through what to say to the Mormon transhumanists, what did Jesus not say to the man? He didn't say, "Oh, you need to find a technical solution to your problem of death." He didn't say, "Go do good works." He didn't say, "Well, you missed the mark. You should have joined a religious order, done rights and obligations. You didn't even get baptized. You've got no luck. You're out of it. You're hanging on the cross beside me. You're going to die." He didn't say any of those things, did he? No, he said, "Today you'll be with me." And it was the recognition that, and in terms of the thief, it was the recognition that the thief himself could do nothing. It was Jesus and Jesus alone, not Jesus plus technology, not Jesus plus good works, not Jesus plus your own self-righteousness, not Jesus plus any of these things. There are no pluses. It's Jesus or nothing. And so that was the message that was brought forward. Again, it was a type of outreach. It was going into that open door as it was given. I want to move on to evolutionary culture, the third example. What is evolutionary culture, you might be wondering? It is literally the celebration of oneness through festivals, through art, through the medium of celebration and the gathering together in groups to experience now our ascension, to experience our divinity, to experience this sacredness in community. A range of festivals in evolutionary culture, from dedicated pagan gatherings like Starwood and Pagan Spirit Gathering, which takes place in the U.S. Midwest, to major festivals, art festivals that have transforming elements within it, like Tomorrowland, which speaks and preaches oneness all through the festivals. We have Hindu and yoga festivals, and they're very open about how this is oneness and spirituality. They're not saying it's health. They're not saying it's just a stretch. They recognize, no, this is spirituality. And then we have mythical festivals like Gaia Fests, fairy festivals. And then in all of this, you have what's called transformational festivals, like Burning Man, Evolve Fest, Lightning in a Bottle. Over the years, and I talk about this in chapter 14 of my book, over the years I've taken the time from specifically 2013 to 2016 to map out where these festivals take place in Canada and the US. I had to quit in the middle of 2016. The task was overwhelming. I had 265 pins on the map. So, what happens is transformation through transgression. In these events, there is a sense of communitas, an organic feeling of oneness in community. It is the power of shared, experiential, and ecstatic encounters. There are sacred spaces, there are temples, there are shrines, a lot of talk of unity and harmony with nature. There's yoga and Reiki and energy healing. There's lots of shamanism and plant medicines, psychedelics. You can go to workshops and group discussions on all kinds of curriculums. You can go to sharing circles. When I go to Burning Man, I specifically go to a lot of the workshops hosted by those who are involved in the technology sector. And there's music. Usually it's electronic dance music, and that becomes a driver for communitas. All of this is interlaced with visionary art, and art becomes the vehicle for personal transformation. G.K. Lung, an advocate of transformational festivals, explains it this way. No less profound is this emergence of a new type of spiritual culture in these festivals, a spiritual culture completely uninterested in charismatic leaders, dogmas, or doctrine, where ritual does not require that we surrender our autonomy as critical thinking individuals, but instead arises as a shared acknowledgement and honoring of our sacred experience together. I've had the opportunity of going to a few festivals and doing boots-on-the-ground surveys, literally having a clipboard in my hand with worldview questions. The thing that pops up is how many people say that on the surveys, their past religion was Christian. And I've listened as some of them are sharing stories about which church they used to go to, which Bible study groups or which youth groups they would be a part of and what they would do. Again, past religion. And then they would say, now I'm an atheist or agnostic. Now I'm a Buddhist or I'm a New Ager or I'm a Wiccan. Over and over again in these worldview surveys, it repeatedly was, God is not separate from nature and me. We're all one. We're all connected. We're all part of the single community of the cosmos. So let me take you briefly to the mothership of transformational festivals, Burning Man. In the picture you see here, that is the city, Black Rock City, that forms around the man effigy. Yes, there is a man in the middle, and that man is ceremoniously burned at the end of the week. 80,000 people gather in the desert. I've been there for 3 years. What's it about? Well, Burning Man is considered to be a container to explore art and creativity. And there is a lot of art and a lot of creativity. There's no question. It is really psychologically overpowering what you see and what you encounter. It is an overload sensory experience. It's a place to model new forms of what community look like. It's a place to encounter spirituality. It's a place to explore what sexuality is all about, to expand consciousness. All of this is experiential re-enchantment. Larry Harvey, the co-founder of Burning Man, said this: "This may be the essential genius of Burning Man. Out of nothing, we created everything." And in the center of that picture, that tall effigy, that is the man from a few years ago. And so this is the man last year. And the man was put on his pedestal. Last year's theme was metamorphosis, the idea that we will emerge from our cocoon as a new being, as a new entity. And so the man is arising. He's standing in an egg. And there's more symbolism going on here than meets the eye. The egg has a spiral shape. And in the meaning of it, it is the serpent around the egg and the man arising through this. And then at the end of the week, the man is burned. And it's a celebration. It's a party. Tens of thousands of people around are cheering. The energy is palpable. It is a place where where people are excited about what's transpiring. There's also a temple. There are many temples at Burning Man, but there is a primary temple. In the top corner is the one that has the far-off shot. That's a temple from 2017. The other picture at night is a temple from 2019. And the bottom one, this spiral temple, was called the Temple of Galaxia, was from 2018. Massive, massive structures. And then during the course of the event, the temple starts, let's say it this way, it starts as a clean slate, bare walls. But all week long, people are bringing pictures of lost loved ones, pictures of those who have been departed. They'll hang poems, stories. They'll write out things on the walls. They'll hang wedding dresses, photo albums, personal journals. All week long, the temple becomes a place where people pour their grief out, pour out their longing, pour out their anguish, pour out their hurt. And it's like being at a funeral all week long. It's a very powerful setting. People walk away from it shaken up. There's always tears at the temple. And then at the end of the week, the temple burns as well. Larry Harvey wrote this, or said this, pardon me, in 2017 regarding that year's theme, which was radical ritual. The moral of our theme, in fact, was that it doesn't really matter what you believe. It's what you experience. The whole point this year was to convince people that Burning Man is a spiritual movement. It's not a religion, but it's a spiritual movement, and you know it when you see it. Now, for the past 3 years, I have been part of a small team that goes to Burning Man, and we set up a camp, and our camp is titled The Camp of the Unknown God. Yes, it's taken out of Acts chapter 17. And for the space of that week, we're there interacting with the people. We're there doing outreach. Myself, I'm doing research, but I'm also at the same time looking for opportunities to have discussions. We're all engaged in doing both. And keep in mind, this is a raw place. It's in the middle of an alkali desert. The alkali dust is extremely corrosive. We can have dust storms. The heat can be very, very oppressive. It's a clothing optional environment. This is not for everybody to go to. But we wondered, is there a model for how we engage in outreach in what essentially is a pagan context? Yes. I'm happy to say that we have had a lot of really encouraging and really good discussions at Burning Man. And we still are engaged in some of those relationships that have developed. People who have walked by our camp have seen our sign and have literally blurted out, "Who is the unknown God?" And so we'll say, "Come in, get in under the, get in out of the sun, get under the shade. Here's some Gatorade, here's some water." We'll engage in a conversation. It might be 20 minutes long. It might be 2 hours. It might be one time. It might be 2. It might be 3 times. It might be all week. And so it has been encouraging. I have been encouraged. Here we are. We're just regular people in a place where historically Christianity is disparaged. This is one place where Christianity is mocked. And yet I think we've only had 2, 3 times maybe of the many, many dozens of conversations where people, when they find out that we're Christians and we're talking to them about Jesus Christ, say, "I'm not interested," and walk away. For the most part, though, people are hungry and are willing to talk, are willing to listen. We listen first. And then, as we have gotten to know them a little bit more, then we engage in the conversation and bring them back around to who this unknown God is. Questions have popped up about what is spirituality. I remember having a discussion with a Russian artist, and I have this documented in the book. He was a onist, and he was describing to me his onist worldview. He was an esoteric philosopher and an artist. And I stopped him and I said, "Are you telling me that as an artist, you and your artwork have the same value? There is no fundamental difference between you and your artwork." Well, no. Of course, I have more value than my artwork. I am the artist. And we had already been talking about 1 and 2 and using that as the foundation stone to begin diving into the gospel. And so I said to him, look around us. There is beauty here, incredible beauty, even in this harsh desert. The sky is magnificent. The mountains are amazing. We are in a very incredible place, just in terms of its natural beauty, the raw natural beauty. I said, God is the ultimate artist. Are you telling me that his creation and the artist have the same value? And he looked at me, he goes, I know where you're going. I see it. We had a good conversation, a really hard conversation about temporary spirituality. Where is spiritual meaning found? Is it found at Burning Man? Is it found in your art? It's so temporary that you burn it at the end of the week. Or is it found in a person who is unchanging, the same yesterday, today, and forever? Is it found in the person of Jesus Christ? Where is your spirituality found? Here are a few other pictures of our team, different places in Burning Man. At one point, in 2018, we had a couple of young guys who stuck with us. They just met us there by chance. It's not chance. They met us there and stuck with us for the entire event, listening to us, engaging in conversations. Finally, I think it was Wednesday night, I went out for a bicycle ride late at night. There's really not a lot of sleep at Burning Man. And I had one of the gentlemen that came with me because you basically see all kinds of things at night. The place comes alive. And as we're going from art piece to art piece, from different camp to different camp, I stopped our bicycling, and I said to him, dude, what's wrong with you? Here you are, you're at Burning Man. You have every carnal pleasure under the sun. You have all kinds of opportunities to do all kinds of things. And you're hanging with Christians for the week? And he's like, I'm learning so much from you guys. Wow. Be encouraged. There's opportunity. There's opportunity right in your backyard. You don't have to go to Burning Man. Not at all. You have the same worldview right in your neighborhood, right in your community, right in your family. You are an ambassador for Christ. You need to recognize your position as an ambassador. You need to know the King's message. You represent his interests. You need to understand the setting of the culture that you find yourself in. It's no longer Christian. This isn't the 1950s, is it? No, we have entered the age of re-enchantment. You need to learn, to observe, to listen. Find that cultural, spiritual point of common interest. Ask questions that invite meaningful conversations. Then present the God, the true God, who is other than creation, different, distinct. And bring all that around to the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. And doing so by engaging with honesty, with respect, with grace, and with truth. Listen, folks, this is ultimately about salvation. Humanity is searching for spirituality, and the world is offering an alternative salvation message. Let's wrap this up. We want to wrap this up with some Bible passages to just reinforce the fact that the God we serve is indeed other. He is distinct. He is exalted. He is holy. Isaiah 44. Thus says the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts. I am the first, and I am the last. Besides me, there is no God. Isaiah 46. To whom will you liken me, and make me equal, and compare me, that we should be alike? Isaiah 46, 9-10. For I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times things that are not yet done, saying, My counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Psalm 96. For the Lord is great and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all gods, for all the gods of the people are idols. But the Lord made the heavens. Let the heavens rejoice. Let the earth be glad. Let the sea roar and all its fullness, for he is coming. For he is coming to judge the earth. He shall judge the world with righteousness, and the people with his truth. Psalm 113. From the rising of the sun to its going down, the Lord's name is to be praised. The Lord is high above all nations, his glory above the heavens. And then we bring that around to Jesus Christ, God made flesh. For by him all things were created, that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things consist. He is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things he may have the preeminence. And then the passage that we all know well, John 14, 6-7. And Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. And from now on, you know him and have seen him. Ladies and gentlemen, you are the messenger of truth. You are the salt of the earth. You are the city set on the hill. You are an ambassador for Christ. This is the call of the Christian ambassador taken from the Old Testament, from Psalms 96. This is your calling. Oh, sing to the Lord a new song. Sing to the Lord, all the earth. Sing to the Lord, bless his name. Proclaim the good news of his salvation from day to day. Declare his glory among the nations, his wonders among all peoples. Thank you for taking the time to go through this presentation with me. I'm hoping that it has challenged you and equipped you, that it has encouraged you, and at the same time done likewise to myself, that we need to recognize that we are, first of all, ambassadors for Christ and be truth tellers in an age of re-enchantment. I'm Carl Teichrib, the author of Game of Gods.